Imagine a striker with the power of a heavyweight, the acceleration of a sprinter, the balance of a street footballer, and the imagination of a player who saw the field 1 second before everyone else. Imagine a forward who could beat a defender with his right foot, finish with his left, win the ball in the air, and then create a pass that made the entire defense disappear from the picture. That was Pele. Not just a beautiful player, and not just a great goal scorer. If we are talking about pure peak level, the highest version of a center forward, football may never have seen a more terrifying player. Because Pele never gave a defense a safe answer. Stand off him, and he would shoot or accelerate into the space. Step toward him, and he would remove you with his first touch. Try to play him physically, and he would stay on his feet and continue the attack. Close the route to goal, and he would find a teammate in a place you had not even seen. Give him half a yard, and the move was almost over. The frightening part was not one particular trick. The frightening part was that Pele could destroy a defense in every possible way. If you enjoy stories about football legends, peak greatness, and the players who changed the way the game felt, stay with this channel. We do not look only at numbers and trophies. We try to understand why certain footballers seemed bigger than the people on the pitch around them. Usually, a defender can prepare for one main problem. Against a powerful striker, you stop him from turning. Against a fast one, you protect the space behind you. Against a dribbler, you refuse to dive into the tackle. Against an elite passer, you close the passing lanes. Pele forced defenders to rise above players who were bigger than him.
He could kill the ball so softly that the pressure around him seemed to disappear, then finish before anyone was ready. And this is what made him so frightening. He did not wait for the perfect moment. He created chaos himself. His movements started before defenders understood what was happening. He could slow down, force a defender to take one step, and then explode in the opposite direction. He could shape as if he was going to shoot and leave the ball for a teammate instead. He could begin a dribble and choose the pass at the last second. A defender saw several possible outcomes, and almost all begin in comfort. It did not begin inside a perfect academy built to protect a future superstar. Pele grew up in Brazil, in the city of Bauru, in a family that had to live modestly. His father, Dondinho, had been a footballer himself and understood how unforgiving the road could be. Young Edson played street football with whatever could serve as a ball. There were no perfect pitches and no soft rules. You had to think quickly, protect the ball, absorb contact, and find a solution in tight spaces. That was the foundation of his game. Technique not as decoration, but as survival. At 15, Pele arrived at Santos. He was a skinny teenager who could easily be seen as a promising boy, but not yet as the future king of football. Very quickly, that judgment became impossible to maintain. In September 1956, he appeared for Santos in a professional match and scored almost immediately. It was the beginning of a player who seemed to already know what to do with adult defenders. At Santos, he did not simply score goals. He changed the scale of the team. Pele could drop deeper, start the attack, burst into the penalty area, and finish the move himself. In one sequence, he was a playmaker. In another, a second striker. And in the next, the most dangerous player inside the box. Modern football often separates these roles: creator, finisher, pressing forward, space attacker. Pele connected them inside one body. That is why there was never a simple plan against him. The world had barely learned his name when he arrived at the 1958 World Cup. He was 17. 17 is the age when most players are still learning how to survive the pressure of senior football. Pele stepped onto the biggest stage in the sport and started breaking expectations. He became the youngest goal scorer in World Cup history, scored 6 goals, hit a hat-trick in the semi-final, and scored twice in the final against Sweden. But the numbers do not tell the most important part. Defenders looked at a teenager and realized they were not facing a future star. They were facing an immediate threat. In the final, Pele scored a goal that still looks impossible. A touch inside the box, a quick flick over the defender, and a finish before the opponent could turn around. That was the moment the world saw more than a talented Brazilian. It saw a player for whom age was not a limitation. This is where the real myth begins. Pele was frightening because he never played the same way for long. Sometimes he drove through the center at speed. Sometimes he stopped and waited for the defender to lose balance. Sometimes he disappeared from the move for a few seconds, then appeared exactly where the ball had not even arrived yet. For a defense, that was torture. You could not simply follow him with your eyes. You had to predict his next decision, and Pele kept changing the question. In a normal attack, a defender hopes to correct one mistake. Against Pele, one mistake became a sentence. Lose your position, and he was gone. Step out too early, and he would beat you with a feint.
Stay back, and he would shoot or find a free teammate. Try to push him, and he would keep his balance. Leave him alone at a cross, and he would win the ball in the air. He was too fast for a player with that much strength, too strong for a player with that much technique, and too technical for a player who moves so intelligently without the ball. In 1962, Pele was injured and could not play a full part in the tournament, although Brazil still won the World Cup. This matters not only as a painful detail in his biography, it showed how enormous his name had already become. Brazil lost its main star and still entered the tournament as a team built from the same generation of belief. Pele was not the only great player in that squad, but he had become its central symbol. Then came the difficult 1966 World Cup. Brazil went out early, and Pele faced brutal treatment and constant fouls.
When the best player in the tournament becomes the target of every defender, beauty turns into a fight for survival. It was the moment when it seemed his story might never return to its highest point. But this is what made Pele even more interesting. He did not remain the teenager from 1958. He learned how to change his game. By the 1970 World Cup, he was no longer the same explosive boy who could run through the entire field in one burst. He had become calmer, smarter, and more precise. Pele could play a pass into a space other players could not even see. He could attract two defenders and open the lane for a teammate. He could finish the attack or create it with one movement of his body. Brazil's 1970 team was full of extraordinary players, but Pele remained the center of gravity. In the final against Italy, he scored Brazil's opening goal and delivered the famous assist for Carlos Alberto. It was not simply another final, and not simply another trophy.
Pele became the only player in history to win 3 World Cups. He had started as a 17-year-old phenomenon, survived injuries and disappointment, and ended that arc as the leader of a team many consider one of the greatest ever assembled. But even 3 World Cups do not fully explain why he was terrifying. Trophies show that he won. They do not show what a defender felt when Pele turned toward him. They do not show the silence in a stadium 1 second before the burst. They do not show how one pause could force an entire defensive line to retreat. Fear in football is not measured only by goals. It is measured by how early the opponent starts thinking about defeat. That is why Pele was dangerous even when he did not have the ball. His movement changed the shape of the entire defense. One defender watched him, another covered the space, and a third started looking over his shoulder. Pele could receive the pass, or continue his run and open the corridor for someone else. He damaged the defense before the final touch.
You can debate whether Pele was the greatest player in history. Some will choose Maradona, some will choose Messi. Others will argue about statistics, eras, and the differences between football then and football now. That is a fair debate because football rarely gives us one answer. But the word terrifying describes something else. It describes the feeling a player created in real time. Pele was too powerful for a technical forward, too fast for a classic number 9, too intelligent for a player who looked like a street football improviser, and too calm in front of goal for someone who created so much chaos. Usually, even the greatest strikers have one visible limit. Pele forced defenders to search for that limit and come back empty-handed. So was he the most terrifying striker in history? If the question is about an entire career, the argument will never end.
But if the question is, which forward at his absolute peak looked the most natural, unpredictable, and impossible to stop, Pele's name appears almost instantly. At short range he was faster, inside the box he was colder, in the air he was higher, and with the ball at his feet, he was freer than any defensive plan could handle. Pele did not simply score goals. He made defenses question their own rules. He turned the striker into a complete football disaster. Strength, speed, technique, passing, jumping, and killer instinct in one human being. And when he walked onto the pitch, The defense was already beginning to lose. Not after the goal, but the moment it understood that this was not an ordinary forward. That was Pele, the king of football, and perhaps the purest image of football terror the sport has ever seen.